Welcome, everybody, back to Peace and Plenty in 20. I'm your host, Janine Deramo, transformational coach for midlife women. And I have a very, very special episode for you today. I have with me Carrie Pace, who is a neighborhood shop owner. She owns a beautiful boutique that has vintage items, gifts, so many amazing things. I had the pleasure of being down in South Jersey recently for a volleyball tournament and decided to pop in. I had heard so much about it and seen it on Instagram. And as soon as I walked in, I knew that Carrie had created something so special. And I was so moved by it that I then followed up with her. Well, about all my wonderful purchases, but I then followed up because I said, I'm so impressed and inspired by what you've done here. Could I please have you on the show to show other midlife women what is possible outside of our inside the box thinking sometimes? So, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Carrie, and we're going to jump in because, as you guys know, it's a 20-minute episode, and last week I really pushed the envelope with that, so I'm going to try my best to keep it to 20 minutes today. So, Carrie, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So
Appreciate
nice to see you.
you too.
So, really quick, let's just give our audience some background in terms of you were living in Georgia on 2 acres with your husband Dan and your 3 children, and you decided to make this move back up to New Jersey after COVID. And so share with us for people that are like, wow, how did you, what was it that helped you make this like really like bold decision and say we have to make a change? What was happening that made you guys realize something had to shift?
Well, we were just missing. We had plenty of space and we had a little garden and woods behind our yard or behind our house. And it was so magical for the kids when they were for the boys when they were young, like 3 and 4. We would go out in the woods all the time and do these nature walks and it was really great for that chapter of life. But we were all just missing having neighbors that you could interact with and having some walkability. It's like that every action has an equal opposite reaction. So before, we had our two oldest, we were living in Hoboken and and we had that luxury of walking everywhere, but we were missing the yard and being able to walk around barefoot. And so this where we landed kind of is the best of both of those worlds for us. So we just were craving community and being immersed in community and not having to drive as much. We were in more of like an urban sprawl. And so that feels really good that we're not having to commute for most of our day.
Yeah.
Where we need to go. Yeah. So
Such a great in terms of I know when we spoke, offline, just in terms of like time saving you hours and hours and hours of time, right? I mean, and that's one of our most precious commodities.
right.
Okay, and then so you made the move, and then you made this decision, right, of opening the shop. And what I really want you to share is there are a lot of women, I think, that have ideas or say, I would love to do this. I know in the past you've always said, I would love to have my own shop one day. But so many of us feel kind of trapped by the on the paper kind of practicality, right? Your current
Right.
situation, even if you're feeling stuck or unfulfilled, it's still very hard to make a leap like that. So uh, how did you find that courage, that motivation to like make that move that might have seemed crazy to other people?
Right. Well, it did. I mean, I felt like I always had like a pull to work and enjoy it. And it felt so out of reach financially, just felt overwhelming to me to for an upstart of a business, like the overhead and just getting it going and inventory. And that felt daunting. And a location, just all the steps felt very out of reach. But I always knew in the back of my mind that it was just going to keep resurfacing until I eventually like dealt with it and and did the hard things. Like, okay, I can do I can source out things. I can, all the pieces just kind of started coming together. I felt like I was trying to be open um, to the possibility of it. And then I was just driving by in the first snowstorm we had. It was like, I guess about a year and a half ago. And I saw the rent sign in the window and it just felt so right. It's like 2 minutes from our house and on the way to the kids' school. And it just felt very manageable. It's a tiny, like 500 square foot space. And so I said, you know what? I can like put myself out there. I start like it just seemed every step closer, that um, the more open I was to the idea of it, the things just kind of organically started um, making sense and falling into place. And I've started finding really great places to source things. And then I found some great other small businesses that I could wholesale from. And then it just kind of came together. And at the root of it was always that I want it to be like a community space, like, like a neighborhood shop where all people feel welcome and that it's just like a positive, nice place that's gonna, brighten your day a little bit or just be like a welcoming spot in the community. So that was always the focus of it and the core part
Yeah.
of it. So yeah, I think the biggest part was just being open and then step by step saying, okay, like this is presenting itself and I'm just going to go for it and take value in what I have to offer. I mentioned to you that I spoke to a therapist
Mhm.
when I was feeling really stuck
Yeah.
um, and so I really started to value what I was able to contribute to the world and my strengths. And I've just assumed that everyone else has those same strengths. And I guess I kind of took it for granted or didn't value it as much as I probably should have or fostered or nurtured it. And so I began like developing those and honing in on my own personal strengths and it's been well received. I feel like instead of trying to conform to what other people were doing, I said like it's vintage clothing and a gift shop, and I wanted it to be unique things that are really special, like one of a kind things, um, and then people are starting to appreciate it, and or have always since day one. I feel like it's been well received. So
I could
um,
tell that, you know, and you and I have had this conversation even before I came into the shop, just talking about. So when I was in your shop, there was somebody else shopping, and I could feel just, she was there waiting for you to open, and
I know I was running late,
she
trying
knew
to.
you. Well, we'll talk about that in a second. That's part of being a working mom too. Um, but also the blessing of being your own boss. You could tell I got to witness just one customer that, you had a relationship with her. She was happy to be there. She wanted to get a gift and she knew you were the place to go to. And I want to just quickly touch on a few things that you said that I think are very important for women to hear. Um, the first one being is that, yeah, it was scary, it was risky, it was all those things. But when you drove by and you saw the shop, like as step one, and you started to open yourself up and lean into having a little faith and also just kind of leaning into that abundance, what started happening was, it sounds to me, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you were getting reaffirmed by the universe or God, whatever that which is greater you believe in, is showing you, yes, you are on the right track because I'm going to open up all these doors for you now and I'm going to show you that it can work, but you have to remain open. You have to remain trusting. And that's very difficult to do, but the payoff is magical, right? And what you've been able to build and create. And I love how you talked about honoring your value and your worth, because I think a lot of women don't do that, or we think that what we have is not enough to offer, or
Right.
it's, like you said, somebody's already done it, but nobody's done it the way you have done it. And maybe the people around you, you're meant to serve in some way. And think about the customers you've met, some of the stories you've shared with me, like you've impacted people's lives and you bring them joy. Like even for me, um, I'm doing a challenge for April, just focusing on little treasures. Like walking into your shop is like a room full of little treasures.
Aw,
It does. It's like
thank you.
it brought me so much joy. I could have stayed there for 6 hours. Because it's so special, so my point, as I'm rambling on, my point in that is I can't imagine if you hadn't put that out into the world. Like what a
Well,
disservice it would have been to not offer this to
well,
people.
thank you. Well, it's been feeding me, in so many ways. Like I feel much more fulfilled and I have a creative outlet now. And like I said, I think I told you earlier, it's being able to take that risk and experimenting and knowing it's okay if I don't get it just right. And that, you know what, that just leaves more room, to improve and to keep having growth. And for me, I was feeling stuck. Like I'd never, it was gnawing at me, like nagging at me to keep progressing and keep having growth as a human. Um, and I just, to me, my worst fear is not seeing my potential through, like not recognizing what special gifts I have. Because I feel like I'm letting my kids down, that they're
Mhm.
not going to be able to fully tap into theirs if they don't have a good model for that. And so that was also a big driving force. Um,
I love that so much. And I think it's important, it's a perfect segue into how, share with our audience how it not, how you balance it with motherhood, meaning from your experience and from my perspective too, I think we both can say that it actually like fits in beautifully with motherhood and actually supplements us, not that it takes us away from it. So can you just talk a little bit about more about that and how do you juggle it all, but then why is it worth it to do this and be a mom at the same time?
yeah, well, I think it's been really tricky to find that balance and to work it out and to let go of the guilt of oh, I'm missing this or I'm going to have to miss out on this. Um, but I was at everything, so I'm trying to let myself let go of the guilt, of not being able to be everywhere at once. Um, and the same with the shop. Sometimes, I have customers that will come in or new people that pop in and they're like, well, I come in and you're never here, you're never open. But then they come in and we get to know each other and then they realize, oh, well, you do have, you have 3 children at home and a husband. And so, I feel like that it's about not living there 24 hours. I certainly could, there's always something to do. And whenever I'm there, I try to maximize my time there. And I really appreciate every minute that I'm able to be there. It's forced me to organize my time more, and prioritize things, and let go of certain things that, aren't going to be perfect. But I do think my children really, to some degree, took it for granted, me being
Mhm.
100% available. And now I feel like we make more plans or we are like, okay, I'm going to close the shop because I know this is really important for me to be there for you, for this play or whatever it is. And so I do think, there's a little more appreciation when I am there. And honestly, the laundry mountain that I was always trying to tackle, when I was home with the kids is still here. And and I've just kind of come to realize like it's at this phase, it's always going to be here. And we're just going to chip away at it and do the best that we can. And it's chaotic and messy, but it is what it is.
It can be chaotic and messy and beautiful at the same time because you're getting to you like you said, you're getting to be fulfilled. I also think like that's such a great point about your children being able to like appreciate and recognize when you're there more. And at the same time, I think for women, it's an opportunity for your kids to maybe be a little more independent than if
Right,
you aren't around all the time. So that's also a gift to them. There's so many beautiful things about it, and I want to reiterate your point of just there's some things you have to let go of, and you get to decide that. You get to, like you said, it forces you to prioritize your time. It forces you to get organized, and kind of without that, you know, sometimes we aren't forced to like, what are my priorities? Like to really
right,
sit down and say, what's important
right,
to me? Not what's important to my best friend or my sister, but what's really important to me? How do I make this fit in? How do I keep this creative outlet, this fulfillment going for me? And then what are the most important things I need to be there for my children? And you, since you've created your own business, get to be the boss and you get to decide. And there's nothing wrong with that. And
right.
like you said, doing the best you can, I think, is all we can aspire to,
That's right. And
right?
and there's a lot of crossover and some areas, bleed over into,
Mhm.
like where my husband will have to drop the kids off, or my sister rescues us a lot, with helping us out with carpool, or and there's times where the kids are there, and Valentina, my youngest, has had she's probably had multiple meltdowns, where I'm helping a customer and she gets dropped off and wants me, so we're always navigating it. And I think I just want to be as real with my customers, in our community as possible. Like that we're all in this together. And, it's like we all have, as parents, have meltdowns sometimes, and we all have, challenges or less than ideal situations. And so I feel like when you're vulnerable and put yourself out there and are like, this is it, and this is the best that I'm able to do right now. Um, that it really, I feel like it disarms other people too. And like I feel really grateful for the community that I'm in, because we have leaned on each other and given tips for like, oh, this school or this program or this, or you're going through that. It's really kind of unfolded, that we're able to create these relationships, and that's really fed me in a big way. I
Yeah,
feel, yeah.
you in essence created your own community, that community that you were craving. And two things as we get close to the end, I'm watching my time. Two things that stand out to me, Carrie, that I think are the reason this is so successful for you are your authenticity and your intuition. So, your authenticity in being showing up as you are and allowing your shoppers and your clients and your customers to see that. I totally agree with you. I love that word. It disarms them, right? It lets them break down their walls and be like, oh, wow, this is a fellow mom. She has this amazing shop and has these amazing talents and this creativity, but she's also a mom. And so we don't, we often have these visions of like boss babe or CEO, and like you have to have it all together. And I think we need to rewrite that script for other women around us and just like be ourselves. And again, with social media, of course, everyone's always putting their best foot forward. But at the same time, it's so important to just be real and just connect with people and hear their stories and talk to them. And that's what you do in your shop. And then the intuition piece, I'm thinking of two ways that it works for you. The first one was just that poll that you talked about, that was your intuition. And you knew to trust it, you knew to follow it, because when we ignore that and we push it down, it comes out in some other way, right? And you really leaned into that. And from what I have seen and talked to you about in your shop, you also follow your intuition in terms of what you source and what you sell and what you offer to your customers.
I want it all to feel right, to know where, the origin of the item is, and that it's made with care and love. And that it's appreciated. And so, yeah, and it was years in the making, so it wasn't, it all kind of came together almost overnight, from finding the brick and mortar space. And then my sister helped me, she's amazing. But she helped me get the shop built out in a month to, put on the, turn on the lights and put on the open, open for business sign. But it was years. It was probably, 10 or 20 years in the making of just everything lining up, like all my past jobs and interest and experiences. And I finally realized, like, okay, if I go out of the box, like I don't have I can carve it out what's going to work best for our family and for me, and what's going to feel good and authentic and that I can be proud of. And so that, it just kind of came together, but it was a while in the making, quietly, and it kept coming to the surface. But I think the time finally lined up, and it happened. So
And it sure did. And what a beautiful message to kind of wrap up with, that sometimes we just have to trust in the divine timing, and trust that, all these things that happen throughout our life and throughout our journey might just be adding up
right.
to that thing that we
Yeah.
eventually are going to step into or going to do. But you also have to be brave enough to take that leap. And I think you've shared so much, inspiration today to anyone who's wanting to do that. I also wanted to show everyone, this is from Valentina, a little locket made in California, right?
Sonoma. Yeah.
And I love that. Is so everything in your shop again is who made it, where it's from, where you sourced it from. Um, and real quick, is there anything, I don't want to say too much, and I guess I can always edit it out if you don't want me to say anything, but um, is there anything coming up, or do you have any plans of where you're going to be sourcing things from?
Yeah. So in 2 weeks, my sister and I, her name's Catherine, that I was just mentioning earlier. She and I are going to go to Paris, and do the flea markets and the vintage clothing there. And she's a baker, so we're going to research both ends, while we're there. And so
So
that'll be
amazing,
that's kind
Carrie.
of a dream, and I can't even believe it. Like I feel like I need to pinch myself that it's even a possibility, But
It's so amazing. And I know when did you, and then you also did the same thing. You went to Italy,
we
right?
went to Rome and Naples, and we were already going for so it's it I feel like when you take parts of yourself, like, you know um when you find your real love and passion, it's not, I don't know, it's kind of organically flown, where it's just part of what we're already doing. And like I would have already been going to the vintage stores and
Anyway,
markets and things anyway. And it's so fun to me that it doesn't feel like work. Like I feel like I'm playing all day. So yeah.
so there is a way to combine your passion, and not saying it's easy. Again, we're wrapping up,
No,
but
no,
not
it's
you've had to make sacrifices, you've had to take risks, you've had to look at the scariness of the numbers on paper.
right, right. Yeah, it's true.
But this this is the balance. This is the payoff of the challenges, taking the risks, and leading what sounds like to me is such a life of like peace and plenty, right? Like you're getting to have it, you're getting to have it all. Okay, so for anyone interested, Valentina, you're on Instagram, right? It's at
Right,
Valentina Lawrenceville. I'll put it in the show
right.
notes. Um, such an amazing store. If you're ever in the area, or anyone who's listening is in the area, definitely check it out. Um, Carrie has amazing style. Like I love just looking at your photos, when you dress up in the outfits, like just for inspiration alone.
Well,
So,
my friend nudged me. She was like, you have to
oh
get
yeah.
over it and just,
Oh,
she was like, you have to just to go for it and put it out there. So, there has been so much support, and nudges along the way to take the leap and take
yeah.
the risk. And
I love that point too. I just exactly having other women support you. And that was such a good move, because really, truly, um, looking at your Instagram is so inspiring. And you inspired me when I came in. I can't say yet what the item is I bought because it might be a Mother's Day gift. But the item that I bought, you inspired me. I am now so into Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I was like, how did I never watch this before? Like, it was always on my list and I never watched it. And so, like, you inspired, like, bringing joy out in me, you know? So these little things that we do that we don't even realize how we're making a difference in someone else's life are so important to remember and to honor. And thank you so
You made
much.
my day, surprising me, to
Yeah,
visit.
that was so fun. Really so fun. So thank you for taking the time to be here
For
with me
having me.
today. I cannot wait to see what you find on your trip. I'm gonna have to make a little journey down to the shop. And then I'm sure you'll share on Instagram with everyone some things that you
We're gonna
find.
have a we'll also have a or we're gonna tie in our 1 year anniversary too, probably that first weekend of May, to celebrate that and see what kind of goodies we found in Paris.
That's amazing. What perfect time, divine timing, my friend, right?
And I love your mission too,
Oh,
Janine.
thank you.
I
Thank
say
you.
that
I
it's
appreciate that.
really awesome and positive and amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So, for all our listeners, you know, I always like to leave you every week with an action step. What can you do? Here's what I want you to do this week. Um, and I wasn't sure what I was going to have you do. I wanted to have this conversation with Carrie and feel it and trust my intuition. And what I would like you guys to do this week is pay attention to that gnawing feeling that Carrie was talking about. Is there something that you have felt a pull to do? It doesn't have to be as grandiose as open a shop. It could be something small. Maybe you wanted to, I don't know, you used to love tap dancing and you want to take a class. Maybe it's any little thing, but I don't want you to ignore your intuition. I don't want you to ignore your inner knowing for the sake of what you're supposed to be doing, or you're supposed to be being a mom, or you should, quote unquote. We are here to rewrite the story, ladies. And I do not want you to go through life, as Carrie shared with us, not knowing your value, your worth, and just how fulfilled and how joyful your life can be. So your challenge this week, your action step, search inside, find that intuitive voice that's speaking to you and what's something new and different that you are going to try. Maybe it is a big thing. Comment, share with us, and I hope to see you back next week for another episode of Peace and Plenty in 20. Carrie, thank you again for being here. Make sure everybody goes and follows Valentina. I'll put the Instagram account in the link.
Thank you so much, Janine.
You're welcome.